In this video on image manipulation, we're going to be looking at one specific technology that is used for managing and manipulating images. And specifically, what we're going to be looking at here is the layering facility. If you have a look in your GIMP window, this is demonstrated in the form of this layers control that is sitting across on the right-hand side at the moment. On other packages, you'll often see something similar. The important aspect of this technology is to understand the nature of an image itself. An image just doesn't consist of just a rectangular array of colors, but in fact it consists of different forms of information that combine to produce the visible image that you actually deal with. So to illustrate one aspect of this, I'm just going to click across to the Channels tab over there, and we'll have a look at an alternative representation of the image, because this gives us a bit of an idea of what we can actually work with. So this particular image is represented as 3 channels, a red, green, and a blue channel. Now there are other variations on the image itself that will either add additional channels, such as those for transparency, or they may use more detailed representations of the various channels in order to give us better color representation. Just getting familiar with some of these things, we can select, for example, a particular channel by clicking on that. That little eye icon next to a particular channel toggles its visibility. So for example, we could switch off the red channel and the blue channel and just get the green portion of the image itself. And if we were trying to manipulate, for example, just things that were green in that image, we could then concentrate our editing specifically on just selecting that particular channel and then working exclusively with that. I'm not going to do that in this case, so I'm going to switch all those channels back on. But I want you to get the idea that an image is represented as a combination of these different components, because when we go across the layering idea, this is where we extend that idea even further. So for the moment, you can see I've got a single image layer represented at this point, and just like before, it's got the visibility icon that allows to turn it off, no image layers left, or turn that on. What I can do now is to go and open up a few more layers. So I'm going to open some extra files. So I'm going to do open as layers so that they actually all end up on the same project, but they'll occur in the layer menu. So let's go and find a couple of, I'm going to try and choose images of about the same size and shape so that we can combine them fairly easily. So I'll add that one as a layer, for example. This is where it's asking me about the color space that it's going to be using. So that comes back to the whole idea of the channels that we manipulate and use to represent the image. I'm going to do the conversion in this case, and I'm going to open up a third image as a layer as well. Let's find something like that, for example, and we'll include all of those. So the point to note is that these layers are effectively a stack of images, one on top of the other. So the one that is visible is the one that's at the top of the stack. So you can see that over there, that's the one with the mushroom in it. If we turn that off, we get to see the layer below that, which is this seaside scene. And you'll notice this layer isn't quite the same size as the rest of the image. So there is some bleed through from the layer below it, which was our original grassy field. Now, why do we care about these layers? Because when we're manipulating images, what we want to do is to take content from different images and be able to combine these in various ways. So for example, if I wanted a mushroom growing on top of a field, I could just select those 2 layers, but unfortunately I can't see through the gap between them. So let's start off with some good layer management. I'm going to just name this one mushroom so that I know what it is. It's a good idea to do this because your projects will get big and complicated at some point, and you will forget what the intent behind each of these things is going to be. Okay, so if I wanted to change the order of these layers, I can just move them up. So I'll put the grassy field on top, then it ends up on top of the mushroom, and because it's opaque, we can't see anything else. I'm going to leave the mushroom on top of the grassy field for the moment. The thing to watch whenever you're doing image manipulation, and this caught me out in one of the other videos, is the editing only occurs on the layer that you're actually working with. So if we pick one of our paint tools, and I decide I'm going to go scribble all over this mushroom, don't see anything over there because the grassy field is actually selected. If I go to that one, you might notice, oh dear, there is some evidence of scribbling taking place at this point. So I'm just going to undo that, make sure that I got my image back again. One more undo. There we go. Okay, all good. So if I select the mushroom, I can now scribble on top of that quite happily. Why is it coming out in yellow? That's a really good question. Remember when I was playing with the channels, I ended up selecting only the red, green, and blue channels. Oh, sorry, the red and green channels, and so it's only drawing to the red and green, which is yellow. I need to switch on the blue, and I'll do the same to the alpha as well. The alpha represents the amount which a pixel covers the one in the layer underneath it, and so that can be thought of as an analog for transparency. Okay, let's try scribble again. Scribbling to the right one. Maybe I need to clear all of these channels. Let's try it again. There we go. Okay, so now we're scribbling on top of the selected channel itself. So what we can do with these channels is to combine them in various ways. You'll notice that there is an opacity slider over here. So a very simple way of combining them is to say make or change the opacity. And so there we get a kind of a blend of the two images. That's not quite what I want, although that is a remarkably interesting looking effect. I might be able to use that somewhere else. That's just changing the opacity for the entire image. What we'd really like to do is to be a bit less general about that and control where we want to have that opacity going. So what I can do with this layer is I can add myself an extra layer mask, which I'm going to set to full opacity initially. And now what you see is there are two portions on this image. And again, this is where you have to pay careful attention to which one is selected when you're drawing or doing any operation, because it will apply to the one that is actually selected. So you'll see there that I can select that image if I want to draw on the mushroom itself, or I can select this white one and I'm drawing on black one, so I can draw onto the mask itself. And what I'm doing now is I'm not drawing onto the color itself, I'm drawing onto the opacity value. What that is doing is allowing me to see the layer underneath starting to bleed through. So if I wanted to do this mushroom more generally, I could just, let's find myself a nice, let's take that brush and let's make this brush very big so I can do the job quickly. I'm going to make it quite hard so it doesn't have fuzzy edges. And I'm going to go and paint into my alpha channel. There we go. Quickly clear out everything that's not mushroom. We could use some of the selection tools that we looked at in one of the other videos as well to select what we want. But I really just want to demonstrate the concept of what we can do with layers at this point. Okay, let's make this brush a bit smaller now. Make it a bit more soft-edged, and I can zoom in and start to be a bit more accurate about my area that I want to keep. Okay, I'm not going to do the whole thing now, just enough to give you the idea of what's going on. Now with these layers as well, we don't just have to stick with coloring them in. We can use some of these other tools like the move, for example. If I wanted to position my mushroom somewhere else, I can pick it up and I can place it where I want to. And if I wanted to, I can duplicate this layer as well. So there is a second mushroom layer, mushroom copy, and what I can do is to move that layer so I can create a whole field of these mushrooms populating my image. And that effectively is where most of the image manipulation comes in. We're going to create layers, and we're going to keep select objects on specific layers and allow us to build up an image one layer at a time. We'll see some of the other things that we can do with layers. There are various other effects that we can use as we combine them together. Once you've got layers in your image, you can't save this as a normal PNG or JPEG file because that doesn't keep track of all the layers. We have to save this in a image format specific to the package that we're dealing with, be it Photoshop or GIMP or any of the others. So when I go to File and Save, I'll do a Save As, you'll see the GIMP uses this XCF format. That's one that stores all of the structure of the different layers. Okay, we'll leave it at that for this point, and we'll come on back to some other concepts relating to image manipulation in another video.